let's talk about New York City. I've lived in New York City for a little over 5 years, and now I'm at a point where I'm just super jaded. Like I'm kind of over it, and I hate to sound elitist and negative and all that. I love New York City, but it's just the annoyances of it. I've just slowly, see like that, like what is this noise? Like what is this? It's like, it's like 12:30 a.m. right now. Why the hell are these noises going on? But anyways, these little annoyances, they just slowly build up to a point where you just get fed up, and that's why most people end up leaving the city after 4 or 5 years. But the main issue though is the cost of living. It's just so damn expensive to live here. The quality of the housing is just absurd. You go to the East Village downtown and you have these tenement buildings, literally tenement buildings that used to be packed with poor immigrants who came here from other countries without a penny in their pockets, being priced at absurd prices. You have little shoe boxes that literally used to serve servants that are now going for outrageous prices. You have studios going for $3,000. I mean, what is this madness? It's like people are used to living like rats to the point where they don't realize the condition that they're in. Like for example, every single apartment I've lived in New York City is a flex apartment. So what that means is that the living room is walled off and turned into another bedroom because it's too expensive to live in a proper 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartment. So you have to wall off the living room. But then it's like at the end of the lease, they end up getting torn down, and then the next tenant just ends up rebuilding it. It's like, why can't they just build apartments that are affordable and the proper size to where you don't have to build a wall in the living room? Just make smaller freaking apartments. Is it like, it doesn't make any sense. I remember staying at this hotel in Tel Aviv, Israel. It was like this super tiny 1-bedroom apartment, but it was perfect size. Actually, when I was in Cuba, it was the same exact kind of apartment. It was a very small living room, but it was a living room and then a small bedroom. And it was perfect. It was like a perfect size for a single person just living there, or a couple. Those apartments, they don't exist in New York City because it's not legally allowed, because there are minimum requirements on the size of the living rooms and the bedrooms and such, to where it's just not legally possible to build apartments like that. It's just ridiculous. And little things like that just make me not want to live here. Unless I was a couple, you can't justify paying the rent that you would pay on some of these 1-bedroom apartments. Unless you're making a ton of money in the city, it's just not a comfortable existence. One of the things that attracted me here is that everybody is so ambitious, but it's like they work so hard to the point where they never stop to question, to think what it is that they're actually working on. I mean, like, look at people working in finance in Wall Street. Not to demean anybody, but like, you're working 100-hour weeks for what? Like, what value are you providing to society? Like, again, that sounds so elitist. I'm not trying to say that they don't contribute to society, but imagine what else you could be doing. A lot of times the people working these jobs are the smartest people in the world, the Harvard graduates, the Ivy League graduates, and you're spending 100 hours per week modifying fonts on PowerPoint slides and investment banking. Like, really? The unfulfilled potential there is just staggering, and it's such a shame. It's such a tragedy. Which leads me to my next point, which is that New York City has kind of lost its soul. And I haven't been here for like 20 years. I wasn't here in the 80s and 90s, but there's this book by this guy named Jerome, I can't remember his last name, but it's a really good book. I recommend checking it out. But basically he just talks about how New York City has lost its soul, and the East Village, which once used to be a hotbed for artists and creative people, is now like a frat house. Again, I haven't been here that long, but I can kind of see what he's talking about. It feels like every year as New York City gets more and more expensive, as it gentrifies, the type of people living here, they become more and more corporate and just basic and just cookie cutter and honestly boring. What happened? I would love to time travel back in New York City. Sirens. I would love to time travel back to New York City in like the 80s and 90s. I know it was super dangerous, so obviously it's much better now, but I would imagine that there was probably this soul that was lost. I mean, now you walk down the street, everybody's glued to their smartphones. It's crazy to think now that back in the day, there was a period where people didn't have cell phones. Like, imagine that, just walking down the street. I don't even know if they had like MP3 players back then, but if they did, it probably wasn't that common. The world has just fundamentally changed, and of course there are a lot of advantages. We're all a lot more interconnected now than ever, but it's a shame that so many things have been lost as well. And also there's so many trust fund kids. It's like amazing. Like, I don't fault anybody for being born with a silver spoon, but when you have these trust fund kids moving into the city working like these nonprofit jobs that pay like 20K a year, and they're living in these $3,000 apartments. It just makes you think, like, what the fuck is this? Like, what am I working for? I'm busting my ass off working whatever like freaking grueling job I have, and here you have this little trust fund kid who's never had a problem in their life just prance over here and live in this luxury apartment building paying twice as much in rent as you are, and it's just like, what the fuck is this? Like, what am I doing here? I'm gonna go to Thailand. So yeah, I've been subletting for the past year. It's been a little bit over a year now. And before that, I was doing the lease thing. I lived in the East Village at this one apartment for 3 years, and that was cool. But then I got so tired of the apartment and the neighborhood, and I thought I was just gonna go travel around the world. But then I ended up getting tied to a job. And yeah, I've just been subletting. And it's funny because I'm in a sublet right now. When I moved in, he was the same age as me, and he was talking about how he was quitting his job and he was going to go back to India. And one of his friends came over. His friend was actually working at Google as a software engineer, but he was tired of his job too, and he was subletting as well. So they were both subletting. It's like subletting is the thing that people do when they get tired of their jobs and maybe just life in general and just want to change things up. And it makes sense. I mean, at this point, I don't want to be tied down to a year-long lease to an apartment, especially if I'm paying $3,000 for like a studio. That's, fuck that. So I'm trying to decide where to go next, and I want to hear your suggestions. I'm thinking Southeast Asia, something like Thailand, where it's really cheap, great weather, nice beaches, and yeah, just can live like a king. South America, I'm really interested in Colombia. I want to go somewhere where it's just not that expensive, where I don't have to pay $2,000 a month for a piece of shit studio. I want to explore different cultures. I'm really jaded. There are so many things I love about New York City. If I were making this same video like 2-3 years ago, I would only just be talking about positive things about New York City. You can look at my old blogs, and the posts I would write about New York City were just all like what I love about New York City. But just now I've just gotten so jaded, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean that New York City is bad. It's just I've been here 5 years, and it's just I'm ready for something new. Let me know if you have any suggestions on where to go next. Ideally cheap. The job market there doesn't matter because I'm planning on working remotely and doing my own thing. Also, just let me know what you think about this video and this whole style. Is this super boring? Am I super awkward? Am I making too many hand movements? Do you not give a fuck about what I think about this random topic? That's totally fine. Those are totally fair points. I'm just trying to make quality content that helps people and people find appealing. But at the same time, I have to be into it as well, I guess. But yeah. All right, well, it's like 1:30 a.m. now. I'm really tired, so I'm gonna go to sleep. And this is Saturday. We got Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday is Halloween, the 31st of October. Tuesday is when I'm gonna have to move out of this apartment. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to this next place. Video recording.
Damn, that's pretty cool. Do you want a picture with us?
Badass.